Hello, yes.
Michael,
Hey, hey.
do you think on episode 236 of We Were Gamers, a podcast about catching up with each other, saying hi after a long holiday weekend, and saying hello, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Do you think Tim Rogers is the type of guy that if I had led the podcast in like I really wanted to with hello to
hmm
sue us?
No.
Okay, starting over. Hello and welcome to episode 236 of We Were I took the long weekend to catch up on Tim Rogers videos, you guys, and that very distinct affectation he has created over time is now stuck in my head, and I self narrate some things with a Tim Rogers.
He's a really amazing video creator. I don't know if I like the affectation he has,
I don't know if I
and
like it either, but it sticks in your head.
it certainly does. And I think it's not wholly an affectation. I think he so the like deep part voice where he does like the hello, like that is an affectation, but he does talk like that, like just on his stream. He just talks that way.
Yeah,
He's a very interesting person. The guy has a what's the word for the you can't ever forget anything?
uh,
Eidetic.
Thank you.
yes, he is an eidetic memorizer of things and remembers what he appropriates to be. Sorry, I used the wrong word. So obviously, I'm not an eidetic memory person. Purports to remember everything since he was like 3.5.
Yeah. And like he can remember how much he paid for a video game he bought when he was 7, the number, like exact dollars and cents on the receipt. Like it's wild.
It's
He also
fascinating.
has he also apparently has the misophonia thing where like certain sounds like drive him crazy.
Yeah.
One of which is the sounds of lips smacking when
Oh
you
yeah,
eat.
he talks about how he has to watch TV while he eats and stuff.
Yep.
It strikes me as a very uh, enjoyable person to know, but also he is very self-deprecating and admits that he may not be a fun person to work with and know.
Yeah, he has like encyclopedic knowledge in some ways of certain things, and I can imagine knowing a person like that would get grating after a certain amount of time.
Well, due to your suggestion, I watched the Pac-Man review, which I would call a documentary more than a review. Although he
Right.
doesn't document like things like championship runs and things like that. He just sort of works on the game. Uh, and then that
Mhm.
led me down the rabbit hole of, well, there's only 3 more of these videos that he has. I should just watch the rest of them. And each one of them is 3 hours
3 hours.
long. So I haven't finished the Final Fantasy one, but I have done most of the others over the course of this weekend. And I just wanted to shout that out. I think those action button videos are pretty good.
Yeah, they are really, really great. And there's a Patreon you can subscribe if you want and get more things from him. It's not a ton more stuff, but like you get behind the scenes stuff, I think.
Yeah. You get to talk
But
with
they're
him, I
great.
guess, or whatever.
Yeah, you can jump on his Discord even if you're not like fancy, but you can't like, I don't know, maybe you get to chat directly with him or whatever. I don't know. But he's a interesting guy for sure.
Well,
I feel like
welcome.
he'd be super interesting to sit and just have a conversation with.
Oh, absolutely. For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Welcome back from the holiday of Thanksgiving, where we gave thanks to food mostly this year. Uh, as we shared them around smaller tables of family, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was you know what, it was relaxing, let's say that, right? It was a relaxing weekend for many, hopefully. And for me personally, it was mostly about food. I don't know about you guys, but 2 food things came out of this weekend for me, and I know some food things for you, and I want to talk about them because we always talk about food up front. Food, we're a food forward podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I think going forward, I need to have some sort of green bean something at every Thanksgiving. Is there a dish like that for you guys? That maybe you always knew you liked, but not until you were older did it become something that you needed to have. I mean, there's always turkey, there's always gravy, there's always mashed potatoes. No one's going to argue with those things. But the side dishes that have maybe fluctuated over the years. Green beans.
Stuffing for me.
Fluctuated on stuffing. Interesting.
No. That is an always needs to be there.
I see. Anything that you've come to appreciate as you've gotten older?
I think I was that kid growing up who really didn't like stuffing too much, but I like it quite a bit more now that I'm older.
Okay.
But the things that appear at every Thanksgiving, at least since, for my family, have been remarkably consistent over the years.
Oh.
So there aren't a lot of like new dishes showing up. It's pretty rare.
I see.
Yeah, ours is kind of in the same boat, so it's not a super easy question to answer.
I guess maybe I bounce between 4 different families' versions of Thanksgiving, as well as I will say a 5th version of Thanksgiving, wherein the younger generation has found ways to spend Thanksgiving away, and therefore we get to make what we want, and that is usually the most fascinating version of Thanksgiving, where I have seen things like no mashed potatoes, stuff like that. But yeah, 4 different families versions where you're like, whoa, these people have like marshmallows in their sweet potatoes, and these people don't have any sweet potatoes, but they have pea something or other, like pea soup, or like all sorts of weird combinations. So I was just curious. Okay, well, that's fine. I got into an argument
Okay.
over an appetizer. How do you guys feel about this? This was mixed into the appetizer, but the argument came down to this: the Cheez It. Was it perfect, or are you allowed to do stuff to it? In specific, the instance we had was these were the extra toasted Cheez Its that had been mixed into a handmade mix. And the person that I argued with did not like that they were extra toasted, and I did. And I said, all the Cheez Its that are side Cheez Its are generally good. And that is where the argument stemmed from.
Side Cheez-Its?
Oh,
so
yeah.
The argument was that there didn't need to be anything besides original Cheez-Its because they are the pinnacle of Cheez-It.
Right, yeah. And I said the pinnacle of Cheez It is maybe chili cheese Cheez Its.
Okay, so you're arguing all the like other flavors of Cheez-It or whatever are the better ones.
Yes, absolutely.
Or at least equally valid.
Or yeah, sometimes more so. I think the extra toast Cheez-Its are better than the originals. Hands down.
I'm a big fan of the white cheddar Cheez-It, so I'd probably come down on your side of this argument.
I've definitely had the white cheddar ones and like them quite a bit. I think I've had like Parmesan or something before, and they were pretty good.
Yeah, those.
I don't know if I've ever had extra toast, but I don't want to like if you just like the regular ones, go for it. I guess.
Oh, I'm not saying that the regular ones are bad. I never did. But I got into.
I think if you're gonna
needing to defend.
I think if you're gonna go for the regular ones, though, you should have goldfish
instead.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It's a different cracker.
Yeah.
I think that they're situational. I like goldfish mixed more. So like if this mix had goldfish instead of Cheez-Its, I might have liked it equally or more. But like a Cheez-It is much thinner and crunchier than a goldfish. Cuz
I'm not putting I'm not using the Cheez-Its as a delivery vehicle for salsa or anything else either. I'm just eating them, right?
I know, yeah. But it's a different texture. You don't get that salt that's on the Cheez-It on the goldfish. I'm wondering about this if I would.
I mean, goldfish are salted. Don't kid yourself. There's salt on there.
No, absolutely. But there's like rock salt on a Cheez-It. You can see it with your eyeball.
Yeah, okay. It's like a finer grain salt.
I'm just thinking if somebody put a bowl in front of me and there were Cheez-Its and goldfish in it, which one I would reach for. Michael?
Ooh, that's hard. I think it's just a mood thing.
Okay, yeah.
I think I'd probably go for the goldfish.
It's funny
More
I think,
because I have Cheez-Its more often and goldfish are less. So it's
oh,
like I haven't had these in a long time.
interesting, because we have goldfish in that house. I use them as incentives for children.
I was going to say, you have kids. That's why you've had goldfish.
I mean, we also have goldfish in the house.
Do you use them as incentives for your fur children?
I mean, no.
Okay, just curious.
But why not, though?
Yeah, but why not though?
Because I'm too busy eating them myself.
Oh, you don't want to fight with the kids. You don't want the cats to know what
Fair.
they're
Yeah.
missing. So I would land on the other side of the coin, JJ. If someone handed me a bowl, I'd say like, well, I don't have Cheez-Its very much, so I'm gonna eat those.
Yeah, okay.
Michael, you got to break the tie. You don't have to break the tie.
Oh.
We'll move on. I'm glad though that I wasn't off base when saying the extraneous Cheez-Its are fine and good in most cases.
No, I'll agree with you.
JJ, get us out of the food hole.
By getting us into a different food hole. All right, so here's what I did this break. We went to Knott's Berry Farm and did the
Hey.
Taste of Mary Farm.
Taste of Mary Farm. Oh, Merry. I was like, Mary? Mary?
No. Yeah, so Knott's does their holiday thing where they do the taste. They call themselves Knott's Merry Farm, and then they dress it all up for Christmas and so forth, you know. But obviously, not amusement parks are closed because pandemic.
Yeah.
And so in order to do this, they open the park up. You can walk around, but all the rides are closed. Basically, all the indoor spaces are also closed. You can like go into shops, but there are lines outside, and they limit capacity pretty strictly. I don't know how many. I don't know how many tickets they sell, but it's a lot less than the full park. And depending on when you get there, the park can actually feel quite empty. So I felt very safe going around. And they open lots of the food stands all over the park, and you get to walk around. And with your ticket that you purchase, I think it was $40. I want to say that gets
That sounds
you
right.
that gets you 5 food or drink items. And there's a big list on the ticket. You could scan your little barcode 5 times, and you get things for free, including alcoholic beverages if you want them.
But not all 5.
Who would stop you though, right?
They do. They track it.
Okay, that's new.
You can only do 2 alcoholic beverages at most per card.
Per
Okay.
card is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
But there's nothing to stop you from just buying more,
Right.
not using the food card.
Right. Yes, of course. And you know they're not going to stop you from buying anything if you want to pay for it. They're happy to take your money. Trust me. But it was a great time. It was one of them. It felt like doing a normal thing. Like we would just, everyone is wearing masks. They take everyone's temperature when you come in. They're, there are people walking around with signs like telling people to pull their masks on over their nose and that telling them they have to wear a mask while they're outside. And
I think they should walk around with rulers and just snap them on people's fingers.
I mean, I would be okay with that, honestly. But, people were by and large following the rules. I didn't see many people flagrantly flaunting it or whatever. Like they wouldn't even let you in the gate if you didn't have a mask on. And it was really, really nice just walking around, trying various foods. And then they have a whole holiday themed menu, stuff with like pomegranates and cranberries and turkey and, all kinds of holiday themed foods for you to taste. I'm here to tell you that the pulled pork mac and cheese is still the winner. People should get that. That thing is awesome.
Delicious.
Yes. Our only mistake in that was not getting 2. They had a Brussels sprouts in pomegranate dressing with I forget what the seeds were. There's like some chopped nuts of some type on it. That was really good. Like really good Brussels sprouts.
I'm remembering some of these from last year.
Yeah, look, they're not that inventive necessarily.
No, I
It's
didn't
not
say
still,
so, but I'm starting to drool is what I'm saying.
It's still Knott's Berry Farm, it's not like Disney.
Yeah.
and there was a whole bunch more. You know, they had like street tacos and pomegranate sauced hot wings. Sorry, they weren't hot, but they were wings. There was like a whole turkey mashed potato bowl thing. And then there's all kinds of drinks and desserts, and you could get a funnel cake. Of course, it's Knott's Berry Farm.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
have
it was a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. And just walking around and strolling around the park and looking at things, and they have like where their stage shows would be. In some cases, they had screens. You could take pictures with the characters, but the characters were behind ropes or up on a stage or whatever, so that you were 6 feet away from them.
Oh, this is a good idea.
But they do a good job of like the perspective on it from where you stand versus where they are, so it kind of looks like they're right next to you or right behind you or whatever. So
Good idea.
yeah, it was nice. Just a really nice. It felt like a really nice normal day out doing stuff, except everyone was wearing masks. That was the only like weird part. And all the tables and stuff are spaced out, so you sit at your table and you eat, and you don't really feel like you're right on top of anyone or anything. So highly recommended. Although now that I say this, I don't think anyone can go because I think it's all sold out to the end of the year.
Yes.
Or-
Although we already have our tickets.
It might be still not sold out if you want to go on Wednesday or something, which not so easy.
My guess would be this won't be the last version of these things, and now that you and Michael have touted them, people should listen.
Yeah. Theme parks were doing things like this before, right? That Disney had done those taste things, and I think Knott's had even started doing them too. So I'm sure they will continue. But I really, really had a great time, and the food was good, and for the price of the ticket, the amount of food you got, it's like this is how much you'd pay for theme park food anyway. Kind
At a
of.
certain point, you're like, well, we better get some drinks because I can't eat more.
No, yeah, like we totally got like boysenberry beers and like bottles of water and whatever, just because we needed like something to drink after eating a whole plate of boysenberry hot wings or whatever.
Nice. Well,
Yeah, really good.
The holiday brings with it the shopping season, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. There is some question about whether or not people should have been shopping much this year. I think, though, the greater benefit of keeping the economy going is a good idea. I don't know. We could argue about it or not.
So we went out on Friday and did a little bit of Black Friday shopping, and I think with a lot of the big retailers having spread out their deals across the month of November, or at least the week or two leading up to Black Friday,
Yeah.
it didn't feel like the madness that usually engulfs shopping centers on Black Friday. Places were busy, but there wasn't, and we didn't try and go first thing in the morning either,
I
but
think also
there didn't seem to be the madness of I've got to get out today and get the deal before they're gone.
Yeah, and I also think that a lot of them said, hey, everything's online.
Because, still a pandemic.
Yeah, but like there was no like you got to come in to get the $300 TV. No, none of that. It's all online.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a net benefit in the long run anyway. I kind of save all year for this kind of thing. So I did my part in trying to keep things moving. You guys, I got some rugs for the house.
Ooh,
Nice.
fancy.
Did they tie the room
Wars
together?
rugs.
But do they tie the room together?
I hope they do. I mean, this one's got the Millennium Falcon on it. I'm staring at it right now.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty cool. And then bumped over to a new phone finally, so I don't have any new charging problems anymore. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good year, I think, overall for people to say, yeah, let's just put the best deal we have out there. I don't know if you guys found anything crazy good. I have one particular thing I want to talk about, but first, anything else anybody wanted to mention?
Didn't really get anything this year.
Oh,
I
yeah?
was just kind of like, nah, none of this looks good. I mean, I did, some Christmas shopping for people and stuff, but it's just like, the price on this is probably about as low as it's going to go, so I'll just buy it now as opposed to waiting and buying it later because I'm being proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
point.
think I mentioned it to you, Andy, that the part of the issue with this year was that there wasn't a whole lot that I was looking for, in part because Prime Day had happened so recently.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I had been contemplating, I think, and I talked about on this podcast, maybe, or at least individually to you guys, about my processor on the computer that we built this year. I had purchased it last year at the recommendation of a lot of websites that it was kind of like the best for its price. And in 2019, it was much cheaper than all the newer options for the board that I had. Recently, with some games and a new game that I installed this past week, I've been checking my benchmarks to just kind of make sure that I was happy. And everything I run, that little processor I have going, the i5-8400, keeps being pinged at like 95% at all the time. And I had this past week some load issues with a couple games of newer persuasions where things would hitch up a little bit or all that. And I was a little bit concerned that maybe this might be the last year for kind of finding that generation before they move on. I think Intel is moving into their 11th generation of Lake processors.
I don't even know. I can't even with Intel stuff anymore. The names are all just impossible.
Well, you can find the numbers, and the numbers would be they're adding 11s starting this coming year, and the one I have in there is an 8.
They are currently selling the 10,000 XYZ series.
Yeah. And so the 8s are the same sockets as the 9s, but the 8s came out in 2017 and the 9s came out in 2019. And so I thought, well, if the prices have come down significantly to roughly what I paid for an 8, maybe it's best to kind of future-proof myself a little bit here, seeing as this processor is already kind of topped out. And I found, hey, component class time. Component class. I found a i7 9700K on sale for like $220. So I went and snagged that. So I'll move from an i5 to an i7. But the interesting thing about this one, I don't know if you guys wanted to talk about it a little bit. Maybe JJ, you have a little bit more insight than the two of us. They've gone to less hyper threading, it sounds like. So the i5 that I have is 6 cores, 6 threads. This i7 is 8 cores, 8 threads instead of 8 cores, 12 threads like it had been. Or 6 cores, 12 threads, right? They upped the cores and lowered the threads from the previous generation.
Right.
It sounds like
how much did you pay for that that i7?
$220.
Okay. Do you want to maybe? Well, it's a bigger discussion, I think, but I think, Andrew, the time has finally come.
Mm-hmm.
I think we shouldn't recommend people get Intel processors anymore.
See, so okay, I want to know more about this. I bought what I bought because it still fits the socket that I have, and I didn't want to dump the whole computer.
Yeah,
so
that's a limiting factor.
Right, and so I wanted to top out the computer I have built in preparation for getting a better graphics card.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess topping it out would be getting an i9, but I looked at the benchmarks for the i9 and the i7, and it was like
the 7 and the 9 are like the same.
They're almost identical unless I'm running some of the processes for editing. And one of the things about changing from an i5 to an i7, exporting videos for this podcast and other things will be twice as fast, but they won't be twice as fast i7 to i9. Price difference was like $100, so it was kind of like, okay, it seems like the math here says i7, which is roughly a little bit more than I paid for the i5 a couple years ago. But yeah, the limiting factor here is I didn't want to disassemble a whole computer. I bought some MX4 and I want to stick a new processor in there, and that's all I want to do.
Yeah, so the thing is that these current generation of Intel processors, these 10,000 series, whatever lake they're calling it today, and actually most people are predicting the whatever lake they're going to be calling it next year as well, the 11,000 series, are very likely to be falling behind AMD's newest Ryzen series CPUs.
But not by a little bit either, huh?
It doesn't seem to be by a little bit, no. The Ryzen 9 5950X is the like highest spec one. These are the Zen 3 series ones. That Ryzen 9 I just mentioned is like $800, so like that's the very top end, right? But the Ryzen 5 5600X is $299, that's pretty cheap.
That is yeah. I mean,
6 cores.
Those Intel processors when they come out are twice that.
Yeah, and this is at release, right? It's 6 cores. It has 12 threads, just like you were talking about before. It runs at about 3.7 gigahertz and then boosts up to like over 4, just like all processors do this stepping stuff now. It's like not even interesting or worth talking about. But that Ryzen 5 is not expensive, first off.
Yeah, and a Ryzen 5 would be roughly an i5, and that's... I mean,
it works with, if you have an AMD motherboard,
yeah,
it works with some of the newer ones. So you don't, if you already had one, you wouldn't have to change. Obviously, you or I would have to replace the motherboard.
I think, Michael, you're also on an Intel.
Yes. Yeah, I'm on an i7 47 something.
47?
My computer's 6 years old at this point.
Yeah, I actually have a 4790K also.
I think that's what I have.
I did get a K, by the way. I got a 9700K so that I could overclock it.
Okay.
Right. I'm going to point out the 4790K has been holding its own pretty well. Not
really
mad
has.
at this one.
It's interesting because my 8400, which everyone seemed to love when it came out, is like, it doesn't seem to be doing great.
It goes to 100% when I'm playing games, but I don't think it's like I'm not having issues. I don't seem to be having issues because of it, right?
Okay.
Right. You don't feel throttled by the processor.
Right. The things I want to talk about with this Zen 3 Ryzen, and I think the one that people probably should be looking at is that Ryzen 5
I wouldn't get a 3. I've had non AMD, but I've had an experience in the last couple years of having had a 7, a 3, and a 5. Don't do a 3. Like that 3 level, they level their cards to each other with 3, 5, and 7. They do it so you know what's comparable to what when you're shopping. That 3 level is not worth it, even if people try to convince you it is.
It depends what you're doing, but if you're listening to this podcast, there's a decent chance that you play games and you do more things than just like surf the internet and Word documents.
Yeah.
And like I do mean just surf the internet. Like probably once you get to the point of like you want to stream really high quality Netflix stuff, maybe even you might want to move up from the 3. But okay, here are some things, right? This Ryzen has PCIe 4.0. That the Intel 10,000 series still on PCIe 3.0.
Mm-hmm.
The Intel series that's coming out next year, I think does support PCIe 4, but it's a different socket.
Oh God!
Of course.
So
that's 2 sockets in 2 years. Because they went to a new socket in 2020.
The highest the 10th gen Intel cards are not being sold with coolers, and these Ryzen cards are
with custom coolers, like not cheap coolers, like good coolers.
I mean, I have maintained that the cooler you get bundled from an OEM is generally acceptable enough, and you don't need to buy fancy ones. The ones on the ones that come with these Ryzen CPUs for all, whatever I have read has said that they're perfectly acceptable as long as you're not trying to burn it up with overclocking or whatever. The Intel one just doesn't come with a cooler at all. You got to make your own or find it, right?
You should make your own. I want to see.
I mean, I don't know. Do something.
Stand here with a fan.
Of course, like you could probably just take the one off your old CPU and put it on this Intel one. The sizes of them are really the same, but that assumes you had one to start with, right?
Sure. Yeah, the 9700K I got does not. I don't need one because I have this Captain EX one that I'll just repaste.
Yeah, and generally for what you're getting here, these Ryzen CPUs are cheaper in most cases and are getting you better performance on almost everything.
I'm gonna lend you another secret here. Ryzen boards are cheaper too.
Yeah. So I and there's a whole bunch of like discussion about why this is. Like Intel is still on this 14 nanometer architecture, whereas the AMD ones have moved to like way smaller ones at this point. Um, I have no idea why this is. There's also some discussion like, hey, these Intel ones maybe work a little better for ray tracing if you have the cards that support it. The AMD graphics cards are not as good at ray tracing, even the ones that do support it, as the NVIDIA ones. So that's another, discussion to have. You don't need to get an AMD graphics card for an AMD processor.
Yeah,
but
it's
you
interesting.
can.
I was gonna say, I hope we're not slipping back into the world where you need to double AMD because they don't work well with others.
I don't think that's true.
It used to be.
Yeah,
Not
no,
recently. Not in recent memory.
You can definitely use an NVIDIA card with
for sure.
these AMD ones, but like for the amount of money you're spending, like it's like scary, man. The highest end, like Intel i9, 10,900K is getting beaten in like, performance benchmarks by every single one, including the 5, the 7, and the 9 of these Ryzen chips.
Wow.
And like it becomes a little more striated when you move up to like 1440p, and then when you move up to 4K, like some of the numbers kind of even out. They're not getting beaten on every single level. But if you're doing 1080p, all the Ryzen's come out on top, which is like that's crazy.
Yeah, that's
Dang.
nuts.
And they're less,
That's the thing.
And the scuttlebutt is that they will not only be good this year, they will be good next year when Intel releases its new ones, which means AMD will still be on top next year when AMD releases, higher spec ones, right?
Yeah.
And so it seems like this most recent generation, the AMD processors have really just taken over. And yeah, I will be shopping probably for a new CPU and motherboard and stuff in the next, probably next year at some point.
May I suggest Black Friday?
Yeah, possibly. That would be a time to do it.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
But yeah, and I just can't. I don't see why I would get an Intel at this point. There just doesn't seem to be a reason to do it.
There's always been trade-offs, and it seems like the shocking news here is there's not much in the way of trade-offs, like almost perceptibly nothing.
Yeah, the trade-off is you can't reuse parts as easily, and it's not necessary. And like you can still reuse RAM, you can still reuse, all this other stuff.
Yeah, but if you're switching,
but
you're not going to be reusing much of anything. Your DDR3 RAM is going to be outpaced by the DDR5 you're going to put in there.
probably, yeah. So that's the other thing too, right? Like my machine is just old at this point, and I need to move to new stuff if I want to do it.
Yeah. I think you're both going to be shopping.
Yeah, it's probably getting close to time for me too.
I haven't felt the need thus far. And getting a new monitor and stuff has alleviated some of that need. It's like, oh,
True.
okay, like yeah, I can't do full 120 hertz on everything all the time, especially on the newer games.
Yeah, am I the only one
But
that's on a 1440 monitor here?
I have one also,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But so like I don't play it on like its full refresh rate, right?
Right.
But the G-Sync stuff is pretty nice, and I don't notice when it doesn't hit it anymore, right? It's like, oh, normally like if you're running the frame rate and the frame rate like takes a nosedive, you can see it pretty
Yeah, the ripping.
pretty easily, right? Well, even if you have VSync on, right, like the tearing or whatever is noticeable.
Yeah.
Like even if you're playing all at 60 and then all of a sudden you turn the corner or whatever, you walk into a new area and the frame rate just takes a nosedive, you can feel it in the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
With the G-Sync stuff, you don't notice. The frame rate's just changing all the time. Like it was 100 and now it's 10 and now it's 50. Well, not if it went all the way down to 10, you would notice. But like, it's like 100 and now it's 70 and now it's 50 and now it's 20 and now it's up and down all the time. It doesn't bother me. The image doesn't look worse. It plays similar. It feels smooth.
Yeah.
and that is covering up probably for a lot. um, so I'll be interested to try all this stuff more when again, I'm not using a 6-year-old processor like Michael. High five.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep this machine as good as it can get while I got it,
Oh man, I think you're fine. Here's the other thing, right?
Reasonably.
You don't have to turn every knob up to 100.
Of course.
You can, if your monitor does high refresh rate, what if you just set it to 60?
Yeah.
Set the game to run 60 and
I
you're
just
fine.
got this feeling like when I looked at the stats and what I was seeing with the performance on the game we'll talk about in a second, the cache alone going from I think 8 to 12 megabyte on, and then the idea of having 2 more physical cores as well as more hyper-threading to keep this machine running longer as an edit machine as well for our podcast, and the idea that next year my replacements will be gone and then the price of the replacements will be too high for me to replace them, right? Like I'm not going to pay more than $200-ish for a processor. That's just that's my ballpark price.
Yeah. And I'm with you on that price. Like I think the mid-range is kind of where we want to be for everything really. Like a graphics card should be around $200, a processor $200. That feels like, how much I would be willing to pay.
Yeah. So, moving that stuff around, playing with the numbers a little bit, you kind of find a new space to be. So interesting to have built a computer and then already thinking about upgrading it, but also thinking about upgrading that graphics card in the near future with the new ones once they're an affordable price. Had me worried when I saw the horrible loading and screen tearing that happened when I loaded up Call of Duty Warzone. Which I would call a relatively modern and demanding game.
I mean, that game came out last year, so yes, it's very new.
I was implored to download this for crossplay purposes. I did not get to play crossplay purposes because, you guys, I had to clean off my computer for the 75 gig download.
Oh, it was only 75. That doesn't sound so bad.
Yes, because I didn't pay for the Modern Warfare campaign, which is another 50.
There it is. I have been told by people on the internet that game takes northwards of 200 gigabytes if you have everything installed.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, because there's other modes. What'd you say, Michael?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's insane.
It is insane. I thought I had plenty of room left. I had like 40 gigs on the computer. I was like, all right, that's fine. I'll download that thing and then I can clean off other stuff. See you later, everything on my PC.
I mean, what kind of internal storage are you working with, though? Like 70 is a lot, but it's not
500.
Okay.
I just have a lot. I had a lot installed that I hadn't cleaned off. Like Apex was still installed.
Yeah, it's time to uninstall stuff.
Yeah, so that's fine. I needed to do the clean out anyway. But wow. Well, Warzone's interesting. They have 2 levels of tutorial to do. The first one is the hallway of teaching you the controls, where you point at stuff and click keys and do that. Learn how to ping. And the second level is throwing you into a game against bots who literally can't hit you, I don't think.
So they're stormtroopers.
I honestly wonder. I don't think they can hit you.
I believe it. I mean, they want you to have a good experience, and they want you to be able to experience how it is to play the thing without getting immediately destroyed by people in online play, right?
Right, yeah. And so I just parked myself in a corner in a room with a machine gun and waited for the computer, who obviously knows where you are, to keep sending one enemy at a time through the door straight in front of me. And then won the practice round that way.
Nice.
Yeah. Obviously, I could report back about the actual gameplay another time because I didn't actually play the game yet, the real game yet. But I will say the attitude of that game is the attitude of people that think they know what people in the military are like, maybe.
I believe that.
Okay. Yeah.
Everyone looks like the t-shirt wearing operators, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
And running around the battlefield willy-nilly, just sort of, as if it's always an action sequence, is the hallmark of that, right? Whereas if you kind of have read a lot of military documentary or other that stuff, like there's a process in fighting combat, and a lot of that process is not fighting combat.
It's waiting in a lot of cases.
It's waiting, it's cover, it's taking fire without, I obviously have not been in the I'm getting in over my head on describing a lot of that stuff, but this is not it. It's just the aesthetic of realism on top of like the frenetic need for it to be similar to Fortnite.
I mean, you're playing Call of Duty.
I know.
You are not playing Arma 3, the warfare simulator, right?
Right.
You are playing a game that is intended to be, you pull the left trigger to zoom and then you pull the right trigger to shoot that guy.
Yeah.
And that is the game.
Sure.
And, I'm sure this multiplayer mode is free to play and nice and like has a bunch of other stuff too that I don't understand about it. But
yeah.
I understand that Call of Duty is a game where you pull the left trigger and then the right trigger and you shoot the guy.
It's definitely the free to play thing, obviously, where there's a battle pass. The music plays over combat all the time, and it really annoys me. I got to figure out how to turn that off. But like that, what? Maybe that's what caught my attention first was the music, because it's literally just like they asked somebody to rewrite the music from like Black Hawk Down and then play it very loudly. That game is very loud. I sound very old complaining about the volume of something. But man, do they want you to have the cinematic experience, quote unquote. Anyway, it's kind of off-putting a little bit. We'll see how the gameplay actually goes when it's for real. I do like the idea that you can post up behind something and use it as a stabilization. So like you can run up to what are those concrete barriers called? Jersey barrier. Right? And then you click the mouse button and your character kind of uses it for cover / stabilizing their rifle, which is a good addition to a game, I think. But that's the only positive thing I can say so far, other than it looks really good graphics wise. Once the screen stops tearing,
I think I just can't. Well, yeah, that's a bigger problem. Turn down some of those settings. Apparently,
I guess.
I
checked the settings though.
I can't
only
with
using
those games, man.
Yeah, I know.
All of those Call of Duty games are just too much for me. Not just like the pace and the shooting or whatever. I played some Apex and that stuff was not the problem. The like raw militarism of those games, I just hate. I just don't want to be a part of it, and so I can't with those Call of Duty games very specifically.
I'll report back at another time.
Curious.
It only used about 30% of my GPU, but it was definitely still chugging, so I'm a little worried. We'll see. We will see. Any other game topics you guys want to talk about? It was it's a hard weekend for games. You got family stuff to do. You got cooking to do.
I had some game stuff, but I want to talk about the other stuff more. So we're gonna come back to games another week.
One of the easier things to do on a long weekend, maybe, is catch a show.
True. Got a little more downtime.
Mm-hmm.
While people are sleeping off their turkey.
Well, hopefully no one was sleeping during this episode of The Mandalorian.
Spoilers up front.
Sure.
I'm gonna guess.
I don't know.
I'm gonna guess JJ
I just
has.
mean give the warning.
I guess JJ has questions anyway. Is my guess, right?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess I don't know. I don't really have a lot of questions.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think you guys are gonna have stuff to explain, and I'm just gonna be like, yeah, sure, okay, whatever.
Well, no, let's not start there. Let's not. You going negative right away.
I'm not
Even
going negative, man.
before-
I enjoyed this episode quite a bit. It was
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Well, so that's where I was gonna start. Is that even before we dive deeper into things, I think this episode, better than the last one, handled the having an engaging episode while also having things going on for people who are in the know.
You're talking about not the last one, but the one before with the Mandalorians in it.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I was very curious to see what your reaction was going to be, JJ, when we came to another segment of this that involved a lot of stuff from the Clone Wars and
Well,
Rebels actually.
Okay, again, another show I don't know anything about.
I know.
My initial take was like, oh, this is that person that people like from that show. And then my next take was, oh, I didn't think they were going to have Jedi in this show. That's kind of interesting. And then it was like, oh, okay. I guess we're not going to see them again. Bye. There you go. That was my
That's
take.
kind of the formula that they established last season was, hey, here's this cool character. Bye.
Yeah. And you know, maybe it will be the case that all of them come back at the end of the season for some kind of big finale thing or whatever. But we don't have many more episodes left for that, do we?
No, we've got
8, right?
3 more.
3 more.
Well, if they want to set up some kind of big thing, they need to be. I'm pointing at my watch here, guys. Like, we don't have a lot of time.
I mean, so if it follows the formula, next episode they don't make it to the thing that she told him to do. They have some sort of problem. The episode after that is then a 2-parter where they make it to the Jedi Temple and something happens. Right? So that's the formula they've established roughly. Now, they may not do that. I was very clearly wrong at the beginning of the carbon scoring when I said I didn't think they'd bring back some people, and they did.
Yeah,
So,
well, and it's also only been 1 season, so I don't know if you can call it a formula quite yet.
well, it definitely worked out when 2 episodes ago I said they won't get into Ahsoka next time because they have to have a problem in between, and then they did.
Yeah.
Sticking to my guns.
Okay. I think them having a formula is probably likely because they want to continue being wildly successful like the first season was.
So, JJ,
Oh, yeah.
the first time they did this kind of thing, and Michael too, you guys felt lost and JJ's case, slightly upset that you knew that you were out of the loop on stuff. Did this feel better in terms of them not making you feel out of the loop as much? Because you were, I would say, roughly equally out of the loop.
I think they did a better job in this one of crafting an episode that had interesting things going on in it other than the stuff that I was out of the loop in.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was still things within the episode that I could continue to follow, like, oh, the child has a name now. Like,
yeah,
that's a whole
do
thing.
you like the name?
Yeah, okay, whatever.
I
Wars name.
I kind of like that they broke the convention. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, but the name has to start with a Y. I kind of like that they broke with that.
Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Call the kid whatever the heck you want.
I don't know
Still
about
Baby Yoda as far as I'm concerned.
I just don't know about adding 2 G's to your name. Grogu.
Grogu.
See,
yeah.
I get it wrong. I don't mind it. It's an alien name. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. It's fine.
I just think it's kind of a funny alien name. It's like they chose a name that would seem almost kind of a little cute, you know?
Like Ashoka is definitely a super normal name.
Oh, yeah. I'm not complaining or anything. Obviously, all the names are...
Thrawn and any of these other weirdos.
Plo Koon is one of my favorite Jedi. Good luck spelling that one.
Nope, not even going to try. There's probably 6 U's in there somehow. But so the child has a name now. Oh, they were testing him for his force powers. He has a connection to the Mandalorian. There's all this stuff going on. Meanwhile, I'm sure there's like some people that watched Clone Wars that are like jumping on their feet, being like, "She's doing the thing," or whatever. I don't know. Or like, they brought back this character that someone knows who they are and why they're on this planet. I don't, but whatever. Sure, they told him to go here. That's why I'm here. You know?
Yeah.
And like the plot of the episode was better, and so I enjoyed it. Even
That's
though
what I
I
was
think
gonna say.
I think the setup for the heist stuff could have been better had they done a better job.
Yeah.
But they instead decided to focus on, what is Mandalorians and like whatever the heck else was going on in there.
I think you're right. Yeah. Michael, thoughts?
I would agree with that. I think that they also had more of a deft hand when they were making references to things, to not leave you feeling like there's a like wink wink going on that you're not a part of.
So this is some
Um,
of what I wanted to discuss, Michael. Maybe you can tell me some, because other than the obvious Jedi character who is a major part of those shows, even I know that. And the name of a character I know from like old lore books.
Ah. Do you
I know
though?
nothing.
Because those lore books
Yes.
don't count anymore.
Yeah, well, so guess what? They count to me. Those books are still good, and as far as I'm concerned, it's the only place that guy exists. So
they have new books that were rewritten that are roughly equal. They were rewritten by the same guy, Timothy Zahn,
why do that? Why not
because they
just
needed
use
to
the
bring
old
them in
books?
line with some other stuff that I'll talk about in a minute after you're done talking to Michael.
Okay, anyway, Michael, tell me what the other references were, because I don't think I got them.
Well, so one of them I liked just because of the sort of deftness with which they slipped it in, was when Ahsoka is talking about not wanting to train Grogu because of his attachment and his fear, and having seen where that can lead. Which is, if you get it, it's a veiled reference to Anakin.
Right. She was Anakin's Padawan.
Oh, see, I totally didn't know that. That's
right,
cool.
but if you don't get it, it's just it is her expressing her reticence, and that to me was the biggest, one of the biggest moments that stood out. Of, okay, they were a little more careful in this episode about handling the fact that here's a character who has a lot of backstory that only some of our audience is going to know.
And that makes sense, because that's also a thing the Jedi just say all the time. Be like, "Oh, you can't have fear. That's bad." Like they all, don't give in to your fear. Yoda said that 700 times or whatever.
JJ, have you never heard the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
I heard that it's a story they wouldn't be willing to tell me. That's what I've been.
She even says, "I sense much fear in you." She quotes Yoda.
Yeah. So I didn't take it as any kind of reference to anything. So that's cool that was like something that people were for. Was there other stuff in this episode that was like clearly a reference to something I didn't get?
I might have to lean on Andy for anything too much deeper than that.
Well, there were some cool references in there that you don't need to remember much about. I know everybody here played the Knights of the Old Republic games. The two droids that the ex-Imperial has, are the HK droids from that game.
They looked familiar, and that's why. Now I get it.
Okay, that's a nice little touch.
Yeah, it's a nice little touch. I don't know if you caught that the dude was Michael Biehn, the main bad guy was Michael Biehn from Terminator. And
I definitely caught that he was an
catch
actor that I knew from stuff.
So there's two tiny references to the Terminator and The Rock in there. While he's walking around with the droids. And then let's see. You finally get to see that Beskar is immune to lightsabers in that episode.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep.
Was this a thing that was not known?
It was not explained in this show.
But was it known outside of this show?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if that was a thing that they just invented now, or was always been a thing.
No.
It definitely adds more credence to the Mandalorians and the Jedi having had long-standing battles between them.
So you what's interesting to me is that I think in terms of characters with story and backstory and stuff like that, Bo-Katan is not that big a character. And it's funny to me that it made you guys rightfully, and I think you're right that it's the story, because I've talked to some other people about it, the episode's story, that it made you guys rightfully feel way out of the loop when Bo-Katan was there. But Ahsoka, who has way more stuff behind her, gets to be a much more inviting character for a lot of people because she can be an older, wiser Jedi in the Uncle Ben vein of it just exists. Like, there's a lot of backstory, but I don't need to know it because the episode was much more directed, I would say, in terms of the goal of the episode, right? But then you get a hint at some of this stuff when they talk about at the end there the whole time. For a person that was in the know, she asks, "Where's your boss? Where's your boss? Where's your of the ex-Imperial woman? I can't remember her name." And for me, I sat there thinking, who is she asking about from the previous shows the whole time?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It ends up being Thrawn, who is a major antagonist in the Rebels show.
Got it.
So much so, how deep do you want to get here?
Whatever.
So
we
much
don't gotta have,
so,
like, infinite time, but
so much so that it makes you wonder if this episode is the beginning of a spin-off series.
So I actually had that thought as well.
Because Thrawn is, as of the end of Rebels, missing. And if somebody knows where Thrawn is, then a lot of stuff has happened to Ahsoka's story in between Rebels and now. If she knows that he's back. So that's my question there is,
how long has transpired between the end of that show and this?
So the end of Rebels is just pre Rogue One. The ship, the Ghost from Rogue One or from Rebels, is hidden in Rogue One.
Okay. So it's not a ton of time there.
No. Yeah.
Right? Because, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi are like relatively sequential with not a lot of time in between. And then this is not too long after Return of the Jedi.
Right.
So, yeah, sure. It, like, enough time for them to set up a spin-off show if they want to.
Yeah. I'd be fascinated if they did. But that seems to be my hope, though, that they are using a little bit of this season as a springboard, right, for something else, because I don't think a lot of people would tolerate a lot of this stuff getting any deeper in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, so this is where I was going to go with this. I enjoyed this episode because it stayed true to the thing I like about The Mandalorian, which is that it's like a sci-fi Western. There's like long panning shots, people having like silent, communication of their feelings, like people walking off into the sunset.
The gunslinger moment with
oh my god, it was so good.
The mercenary.
It was really good.
A literal quick draw. Like,
it's great.
Oh my god, it was so good. And that's the stuff I've loved about this show. And actually some of the stuff I loved about the original Star Wars movies. They were kind of Western-y. The first one specifically, the other ones less. But, it is that stuff has been why this show works for me. And that episode with Bo-Katan, like, yeah, there were elements of it, and like it didn't like stray completely from the formula, but this one stayed really true to the formula and therefore like continued to feel like the show that I like. And if they want to springboard something off this and go off and do, Adventures of Dual Lightsaber Lady, go for it, I guess. She has to fish her lightsaber out of the pond, though.
I'm sure she already did.
Yeah, I believe it. She has the Force, right? I'm sure it works.
So we were watching this show. We were watching this show. My wife goes, "Why didn't she just force back her lightsaber?" And I'm like, "Babe, don't ask why didn't she X thing with the Force. It just
yeah. I mean, why didn't you just Jedi mind trick her into telling you what you want?"
So many moments.
Yeah, wow.
So many moments. So many. Well, the Jedi mind trick thing is easily explained. A lot of they explain in the first movie that it's only used on the weak of mind, right? And they've expanded that to mean a lot of people can't be Jedi mind tricked.
Anyway, my point is that, look, they can write whatever they want into the script to make an exciting scene.
But there's always so many moments of like, it would really be easier to just use the Force for this, or like you could have saved that person's life with the Force, or
push her off balance and take her spear or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But what but they made a good, interesting episode absent any knowledge about that stuff.
The fight
and
scene,
that was the problem with the other one.
The best part of that you're talking about there is that the fight scene that you cared about wasn't the Jedi fight scene.
Totally.
The Jedi fight scene was backdrop to the tense nature of the standoff in the street. Right? Like Michael Biehn perfectly sells you on the fact of like, we're gonna determine what happens here based on what happens there, right? Like,
it was perfect in the because the show is The Mandalorian. I'm here to see what happens to the Mandalorian, right?
Yeah.
The Jedi fighting stuff, I'm not really here for that. Cool, but it's happening, whatever. And it was cool that they kept cutting away from the Jedi fight scene, like their lightsaber thing, which they know and love, right? Everyone loves lightsabers in Star Wars. To show two dudes standing there, about to draw and listening to the fight to see who wins. It was cool. And it was a really good way to build tension for the scene that you care about with the main character and not about the guest character they introduced 40 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And so that's why this one worked for me.
I had a feeling you guys would like this one better in terms of the less. It was equally referential, but at least it was much more self-contained. You didn't need to know, and you didn't feel like you needed to know. So I was curious to see if I was right. Cool. Well, if you have thoughts that you want heard about The Mandalorian, or if you want to tell us why you like Call of Duty Warzone, or you have thoughts on the Ryzen, that's actually what you should email about, because these guys are going to be looking at building computers soon. So we're probably going to be bringing back component classes more soon. Not soon? I don't know. Sometime. Anyway, email us. Where?
You can send those to podcast@weweregamers.com. We're on the internet everywhere under We Were Gamers. So check all the social media. Follow this podcast on your favorite podcasting app of choice. And hey, search for us on YouTube and please follow our channel. That would help us out a lot. We would really appreciate that. Andrew has even sorted all the component classes and the other various sub things for carbon scoring if you want to hear about the latest more in-depth Mandalorian stuff, or if you want to hear about me and Andrew talk about Star Trek or whatever other weird sub pods we have. Those are all on playlists there, so they're easy to find.
It's December. We got to start watching Discovery.
Yeah, we do. Season 3 is happening.
Season 3 is mid-swing, which means we got to start our multi-episode pods. All right. That's exciting. That's a good realization to end this one.